What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for Arrow Season 7, Episode 10, titled, My Name is Emiko Queen. It was then changed to Shattered Lives, but then it was changed back to My Name is Emiko Queen. So since that episode is titled My Name is Emiko Queen, it obviously focuses around majorly Emiko Queen, giving us her backstory, her motivation, as well as a lot more screen time with the character, and now I could basically judge the actress and the character in general, whether I like or dislike her, or somewhere in between. So what do you think about this whole character and this whole storyline, this motivation, and the backstory for this character in this episode? Definitely mostly positive. I do in general like this character. I do think that the actress could work a little bit on her her acting ability. In general, she seems like she's always in the same exact mood. She seems just angry all the time, which means maybe it was on purpose, but I kind of doubt it, and I hope they kind of change that a little bit, because a character that's always angry doesn't sound like a very likable character at all. This is only her second episode as the actress, so maybe she'll get better, but in this episode I do think that she wasn't a very likable character. That being said, her backstory was pretty good. The whole connection to her being the daughter of Robert Queen, which was mostly explained in the storyline with Oliver and Felicity, which I will talk about after I talk about everything with Emiko Queen. I like that quite a lot. Her mother was revealed as a character named Koizumi Hadichi, which is not a character from the comics. It's also not her mother from the comics. Obviously, if you don't know, her mother is Shadow, the same Shadow that did appear in Arrow back in 2012 or 13, whatever episode they introduced Shadow for the first time. I don't think Emiko was actually a character yet. She's a very, very new character from 2015 or maybe even 16 at that. So 2012, she probably was not a character. I'm not 100% certain about that, but so they didn't really think there was any problem using Shadow in the flashbacks as opposed to the present day. But now that they wanted to introduce this very new character in the comics as well as in the show of Emiko Queen, Shadow does not work, so they just came up with a new character, which I obviously have no problem with that whatsoever. And her whole motivation is connected to her mother. Somebody murdered her mother for some reason that is not explained or told to us in this episode, but that is her main backstory. She wants to get revenge on those people, which obviously leads her to becoming the new Green Arrow, although I'm hoping she becomes the Red Arrow, as Emiko Queen is the Red Arrow in the comics, the second Red Arrow after Roy Harper, who his main hero name is Arsenal, just like it is in the show as well. So Emiko could take up the name of Red Arrow, and I think this episode did a pretty good job at bringing her up as her motivation and her backstory. Not so much her character in general, as a likable character, but I don't think that's a main problem at all for this episode. That definitely is going to happen over the course of the season, or at least she should, and I'm really hoping she will, because if she doesn't, she won't really end up being a likable character in the long run. I'm really also hoping they don't do this thing where she does join Team Arrow. That's obviously going to happen and probably become Red Arrow, and then I really hope she doesn't have this problem with being a sidekick to Green Arrow, because I feel like that's something they would do, and that's definitely not something I would like to see. But anyway, I do like Emiko and Rene teaming up in this episode as well. I do think Rene was a good character for them to choose for the first team up with Emiko. We have seen that in previous episodes, but this is the first time that they had the actors really talk to each other, and do you think they bounced off each other rather well? And also, Rene is back with his old Wild Dog costume. When he got his new costume in Season 6, I really didn't like it, because he didn't have any, he didn't have the logo he had in Season 5, and it was just a boring armor. It wasn't really a costume. Now he's back to his Season 5 costume, which I did think that costume was pretty great. It was one of the most comic book accurate costumes in the Arrowverse. I hated that they changed it, so I'm glad that they're back to the old costume. But anyway, my final conclusions about this storyline, which is the main storyline of this episode, is I do think it was pretty good. I do think that it did a good job at building up Emiko's backstory and motivation, as well as give her some character development that did work quite well, and her teaming up with Rene was pretty great. Rene getting his old costume back is great as well. I just don't think it did a great job at introducing Emiko as a likable character, a character that I think I would like seeing more of after this point, and I'm really hoping the rest of the season does that. And again, I really hope she gets either a new costume or just makes this Green Arrow costume red and becomes the Red Arrow. But moving on to other storylines, specifically the one that is connected to Emiko Queen, Oliver and Felicity trying to find out who the new Green Arrow is. Felicity finds out that it is Emiko Queen, the half-sister on Oliver's father's side to Oliver Queen. And first of all, I do like the fact that they just revealed it to Oliver and Felicity right away. They didn't really tiptoe around to like maybe keep it a secret from Oliver and have a huge revelation to Oliver in like episode 15 or something. Even episode 11, the audience found out in episode 8, and now Oliver is finding out in episode 10, as well as Felicity, and basically now everybody knows her identity and the fact that she is the half-sister of Oliver Queen. So I do like that, and just the way they really made it so that Oliver knows that she is Emiko Queen, like where they took the blood from the crime scene and Felicity examined it a little bit and then they investigated all of that. I did like that quite a lot. Oliver's reaction to the fact that Emiko Queen he has another half-sister, and his reaction to the fact that his father Robert is actually even worse of a person than he thought, because not only did he have a secret family with Emiko Queen and her mother, also he abandoned that family. So Oliver obviously has a pretty great reaction in this episode. I do think Stephen Amell does a great job in this episode in the role. They kind of did bench Oliver for this episode, as they did with Barry in his episode in season 5, episode 10, and Kara a little bit as well, because they were busy filming an extra 2 episodes with Elseworlds, so it does make sense. And I do think this episode did a pretty great job at benching Oliver and also using him at the same time without making it feel like it was annoying, because it wasn't. I do like the fact that this episode focused on Emiko Queen, and I did like Oliver's whole storyline as well. His reaction to Emiko Queen and everything his father has done with Emiko and her mother, all of that made for a pretty good storyline, a pretty good use of a kind of benched Oliver in this episode. And then the collision between these two storylines at the end of the episode, when Emiko is at Robert Queen's grave, who I'm guessing she might not know that Robert abandoned her family. Instead, she might think that he died, which is why he never returned or something like that, because now Oliver might reveal to her that Robert abandoned them, so she might get even more angry and not visit Robert anymore, because why would she really visit the grave of her dead father, the same father who abandoned her? I mean, she can visit it once in a while, but she's done it for the past couple of weeks twice already, so I do think that she doesn't know. But anyway, the collision between these two storylines at the end was a pretty awesome ending to this episode, and an ending I didn't really expect to see. Like, I didn't expect them to move through this storyline so fast, with the audience being revealed that it is Emiko Queen, and then 2 episodes later, which is the next episode of Arrow, really, because the only episode other than that was Elseworlds, it's revealed to Oliver and basically the rest of the cast. And then in that same episode, Oliver meets Emiko. I do like how fast they're moving with this storyline, so they could really move on to either other storylines or storylines that just involved Emiko Queen as a part of Team Arrow. But anyway, I do like most of this episode. Everything that involved with Emiko Queen, I did like it for the most part. I didn't really love most of it, but I did like it quite a lot. But moving on to storylines that are not connected to Emiko Queen, there is one with Diggle and Lila, starting up what they are calling the Ghost Initiative, which is very clearly a new Suicide Squad. Warner Brothers is not allowing them to use the name Task Force X or even Suicide Squad, or even use the same characters like Deadshot, Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, etc., but they are apparently allowed to use the same concept of villains having bombs being put in their heads or necks or wherever, and then that being used against them so that the villains would help Argus on certain missions that are very dangerous and basically a Suicide Squad, but they're not being called the Suicide Squad. And I do like the fact that they're bringing the Suicide Squad back, even though they're not calling it that. I'm just gonna call it that from now on. I'm not going to call it the Ghost Initiative, because there is no such thing as the Ghost Initiative. There's just the Suicide Squad, and I do like that they're bringing the Suicide Squad back. Hopefully Warner Brothers does become a little bit more lenient. They let them use Deadshot and Bronze Tiger and even Harley Quinn as well. Hopefully, because they did become a little bit more lenient on things like Batman, and not so much Deathstroke, but definitely Batman, and hopefully they could become a little bit more lenient on the Suicide Squad. But this whole storyline was mostly set up for the next episode, which the next episode I'm pretty sure is the one that David Ramsey is directing, and that episode will heavily focus around this new Suicide Squad of Ricardo Diaz, Cupid, Joe Wilson, as well as China White. And I do think this episode did a pretty good job of setting that up. There was some conflict between Diggle and Lila, which I feel like there's like that every single time we see them, there's conflict between them, so I don't really like that much, but I do think the storyline did a pretty good job at setting up this Suicide Squad we are going to see in the next episode as well as in this season. So all of this brings me to the flash forwards in this episode, which is mostly focusing around Zoe Ramirez, as well as her going to the Glades and meeting up with her father, Rene Ramirez. This is the first time we're seeing Rene 20 years in the future, and I did always think that even though the actor is like 38, he looks so much younger than 38, and somehow in the future, 20 years later, where he is 58 years old, or he should be if he's the same age as the actor, he looks even younger than he does in the present day. I think it's because they changed his hair a little bit, and it makes him look a little bit younger. They also gave him some makeup and tanned him, I guess, a little bit. He kind of looks younger. He's 58 years old, going by the actor's age, and he looks like he's 26, which is kind of ridiculous. This is a problem also for Dinah and Roy. They don't look as old as they should. But anyway, getting past that, I also don't think Zoe's actress, which is this is the first time I've really seen her do anything other than just be the Black Canary and just be in scenes talking to people. This has some scenes where she's, I guess, yelling at Rene, being a little bit emotional at times, and I don't think she's very good. That's not to say the flash forwards were bad, because they definitely weren't. I just don't think the scenes between Rene and Zoe were particularly good. There were some other things, like Rene being revealed to be working with the people who blew up or are planning on blowing up Star City, the same people who murdered, and hopefully they did actually successfully murder Felicity Smoke, and that was definitely interesting, a different take on Rene Ramirez. And throughout the episode, while everyone was saying, like Dinah was saying, Zoe was saying that Rene has lost his way, I kept on thinking, how? He's doing a lot more good for at least the Glades than he has ever done for Star City in the past, but it's revealed at the end of the episode that he is definitely lost his way a little bit, working with the people who are planning on blowing up Star City, which I'm guessing that group is the actual Ninth Circle, which I mentioned in a previous video of mine going over what things I want to see in the back half of Season 7. The Ninth Circle in the comics did actually blow up parts of Seattle, the city that Oliver Queen and Green Arrow, or Oliver Queen aka Green Arrow, operates out of in the New 52, but doing so, they made the city turn into Star City, although I'm pretty sure they turned it back into Seattle ever since. But I'm guessing that the Ninth Circle are being used in the flash forwards, which means that they're probably not going to be used as main villains in the present day, although they might, and just stick around 20 years later without Team Arrow knowing that they do. But then there's also the tattoo, the Team Arrow tattoo that was revealed not in this episode, but I'm pretty sure in a previous episode. I'm pretty sure the episode where Maya, who did not appear in this episode, was first debuted, whoever she is, on the show. I'm pretty sure in that episode we saw Dinah and her tattoo. But anyway, this episode confirmed which characters have this tattoo in this timeline, which is Oliver Queen, John Diggle, Felicity Smoke, Roy Harper, Donna Drake, and Rene Ramirez. That brings up the questions of why does Emiko Queen not have this tattoo? Does she never join Team Arrow? As well as the fact as when does Roy Harper return to Star City? Because this means he has to return in the present day. And on top of that, when do all 6 of these characters come back together as a team and get this tattoo? My guess at the end of this season, which would be a pretty cool thing to see. But will Emiko Queen not team up with them? What about Curtis? A bunch of questions I have for this whole tattoo thing. We will have to wait and see to see the answers, but I do think this scene between Rene and Dinah with the tattoos and Dinah just asking Rene for help, Rene saying no, and then it's revealed later why he does not want to help, it's a pretty good scene. And the flash forwards, although not the best they've been in this episode, and they haven't been awesome recently either, like in the last couple episodes of Arrow, they are definitely wrapping up to something big, and I am pretty excited for that, and it definitely was not bad in this episode. In conclusion, Arrow Season 7, Episode 10, titled My Name is Emiko Queen, is a solid return from the mid-season break of Arrow, focusing mostly on Emiko Queen, which made sense in terms of the production of the episode and in terms of Elseworlds, kind of making Oliver have to be benched a little bit for the episode, but that worked well, I think, in my opinion. Basically, every storyline was good. None of them were amazing or anything, and this episode is definitely not amazing, but there were not any bad storylines either, so I will give this episode an 8.7 out of 10, but let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments down below, and if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.